Here are the 4 survivors you need to prioritize in order to carry games solo in Evil Dead the game. These are the survivors from each role that bring the most utility to a team and who you should prioritize first. First off, let's start with the leader role. Now, the leader role by itself is pretty tough to carry with because you're there to buff your teammates, which, depending on the certain situations and depending on your teammates, can potentially put you in some pretty crappy situations. Now, while the other 2 leaders shoehorn your teammates into playing a certain play style, the survivor you most need to prioritize is the one that's gonna give your team the most utility, and that one is El Jefe himself, Ash Williams from Ash vs. Evil Dead. Ash's active ability, Show Up and Blow Up, generates an explosion damaging the enemy's balance bars in a circle of 13 feet around Ash with a 30-second cooldown. While his active doesn't sound too interesting, it's actually really solid because it makes demons much easier to finish and execute. However, his passive abilities, El Jefe and El Jefe Grande, are what really make Ash shine. El Jefe is a constant aura that affects all survivors within range, increasing their fear resistance, which will slow the game down for the demon, but also adds a 10% damage boost to anyone inside the aura, no matter what they're using. Now, El Jefe Grande enhances these aura effects every time you perform a finisher or dismember an enemy as Ash by 100%, which is crazy and gives the most versatility for your team, and the leader I recommend the most when playing solo. Another role that is really hard to carry with is support. Listen, it sucks being the glorified babysitter, and that's exactly what the support role is. And like any great babysitter, you're gonna have to corral your teammates and adjust your playstyle wherever you are needed the most. The support you choose really relies on team comp most of the time, and that's no different here in Evil Dead the game. Now, they're all pretty solid in their own ways. Cheryl's upfront healing probably makes her one of the better supports in the game, and Pablo could definitely be OP if his active ability wasn't on such a long cooldown. However, my pick for the most versatile support, and probably the character with the highest skill ceiling in the game, is none other than Ash Williams from Evil Dead 1. Now, his active Reassuring Presence does help a lot with the team's fear management, reducing fear by 50 every 60 seconds, but where Ash is very, very strong is with his passive abilities, Alternative Healing or the MT abilities, Mark Target Damage and Mark Target Healing. With these abilities, Ash is able to heal himself and his teammates while also dealing a massive amount of damage at the same time. Alternative Healing is just so insane by itself. Every time you have a successful heavy melee attack, you're able to restore yours and your nearby allies' health. Basically, if you pair this with a really fast melee weapon like a knife, it will feel like a normal light attack and you'll be able to just spam heals like crazy throughout the fight. It's very, very overpowered right now. Now, his MT abilities do take a little bit getting used to. Basically, every headshot you get marks a demon. MT damage will add an additional 30% damage from a teammate who follows up with an attack to whatever demon that was marked, while MT healing will give an extra 30% damage your teammates inflicted after a demon is marked, restored to them as health. These abilities basically make it so you are constantly inflicting damage and healing your teammates and yourself at the same time. Now, warriors are probably the best role in the entire game if you are playing this game solo. You'll most likely be dealing the most damage while also being the tankiest mofos in the entire game. So if you're the type of person that wants to get into the grit of everything and throw massive amounts of damage around, this is the class for you. But which survivor should you go with first? While Scotty does have a decent enough crowd control, it doesn't stun people for a long time, and the rest of his passives are just kind of forgettable. Which leaves Army of Darkness Ash and Henry the Red as the 2 people that I would say you guys should go for. Now, Henry the Red is potentially by far the tankiest person in this entire game. His active ability basically makes him unkillable for an entire 6 seconds. But if you really want to carry solo and get the most versatility out of your kit, look no further than probably the best character in the game, Army of Darkness Ash. The man is a bona fide stud on 2 fronts, dealing massive amounts of damage and survivability. Ash's active, Wise Man's Potion, when activated, will grant 250 health, reduces 30 fear, 30% increased damage, and 50% damage reduction on a pretty short cooldown. This alone makes Ash one of the best survivors in the game, but it doesn't stop there. His 2 passives, Shield Blast and Finish Strong, center around more passive damage he can dish out while also getting more shields. For Shield Blast, every shield that loses a bar, it will trigger a 200 damage explosion, damaging any nearby enemies, while Finish Strong basically helps Ash recover 40 of his shield bar every enemy that's killed with a finisher. So being able to slap some Deadites' heads off while slowly gaining shields is what makes Army of Darkness Ash such a favorite in the warrior class. Now, lastly, we have our hunter role. Now, each hunter has its own versatility and has a pretty solid damage output, so this one was tough. Evil Dead 2 Ash's active ability is extremely useful in almost any situation, and then getting at least final passive, the Collector, improves your chances of actually finding crates of higher rarity, which will level up your teammates a lot faster, but they both have their limitations, which ultimately leaves Kelly Maxwell and Amanda Fisher as the favorites. Now, the lady that I would run into battle with and wanted to pick if I was playing solo is none other than Kelly Maxwell. While Kelly and Amanda both have amazing actives, Kelly's ultimately slip shot is the one that I think is the most useful. When activated, you dodge without using any stamina, and your ranged attack can cause a 20% bleed for 5 seconds. This is extremely useful if you have a day-to-day boss on top of you and you can't get away. Kelly is a master at being nimble in battle while also outputting a ton of damage because of her passives, Countershot and Battle Frenzy. Countershot causes your next ranged attack after a successful dodge to inflict bleeding damage on your target for 5% damage per second, and Battle Frenzy buffs your melee damage the longer you're in combat by an extra 2% per second. So basically, if Kelly is played right, she can be a complete damage machine while also getting you out of some very sticky situations that you do not want to be in. And there you have it. Those are my 4 survivors that you should probably main if you ever want to play this game solo. Now, these are just what I consider the best survivors to play solo, but it doesn't mean that's the end all be all. If you find somebody else in here that you like to play, just play them. Every survivor has their niche. But overall, if you want to start winning more games in Evil Dead the game as a survivor, you have to have good team play. Now, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because if you haven't,
I will swallow your soul.